I've had to explain to people in my life, including my husband and my children, that I need time alone. And I think they get it now. I think before, especially Chico would get his feelings hurt. He would, say things like, "What? Oh, you need to be alone? What? Am I not good enough, or am I not, or do you not have fun with me anymore, or do you not?" I mean, like, no, it has nothing to do with that. I mean, it's just, doesn't everyone need some time alone, first of all, but then also just some privacy in their life when you don't even realize that you haven't had that ever? Hi, filter optional listeners. I am coming to you solo today. For those, hopefully, you're not a first time listener, but if you are, I am Shannon West. I am the filter of No Filter or Filter Optional. And my husband, Chico, is the No Filter. So you probably won't get a whole lot of controversial comments or topics on today, but I did want to talk about some things. And so I'm probably going to dive right into it since I don't have my partner in crime for banter and all that kind of stuff. But, we have both had these terrible chest fever viruses this summer to start off the summer. And I have heard that it's been going around. So I'm sure that a lot of other people have been battling summer illnesses, which is so much fun. But so you can still hear it in my voice and in my noise, probably, in my nose and in my voice and in my chest a little bit, but I'm going to motor through. And that's why we were out of the office this week for an episode, and it wasn't because we were on some fabulous exotic vacation. We were both just down for the count. So now we're catching up, and I am going to do this solo episode, and then I'll talk a little bit more about where we're going to go after that. But I want to talk about something. So my youngest graduated from college a few weeks ago. And when my oldest graduated from college 4 years ago, I gave him the same advice that I'm about to tell you all that I shared with my oldest and my youngest. I told them both that to be aware that your early 20s, after you get out of college or just in your early 20s in general, are some of the loneliest times in your life. I said that because in particular for me, my early 20s were very lonely, even though I had lots of friends. I had roommates. I lived in Dallas, which is where I live now, but, huge city, lots of young people. I had a job where I worked with a lot of people. Unlike today, when people work even remotely, they're even more isolated and they aren't around people. I was around a lot of people all the time. And I had good friends and I had good coworkers and all of that stuff. But there was just still this sense of loneliness that I never really could pinpoint. I never really felt totally 100% connected to anything or anyone. And I don't know, there's just this sense of loneliness. And so I just forewarned both of my children that you can have a sense of loneliness while being surrounded by many, many people and having many activities and roommates and all that kind of stuff. But it's okay to still have a sense of loneliness if they have that. And my oldest that graduated 4 years ago has kind of verified that, yeah, that was pretty good advice because you're so used to being around a group of friends that have a common goal, whether it's a football team that you all want to win, because you're at the same school. And so you're all rallying around the same, or volleyball team, or any sports team or whatever, just a college or a university. If you're used to rallying around the same, goal. Or both my boys said that one of their favorite nights of all of college was graduation night because everyone goes to the fountain and they, jump in the fountain and they pop champagne bottles and but they're all there and they're all friends and they're all friendly. And it doesn't matter, who you are, where you're from, what your beliefs are, what your value system is or whatever. You have a common, theme of, I just got out of the same university and we are all human beings and we are all people, and you feel genuinely connected to a group of people. And so it's not lonely. And that night, no one seems to be lonely, even amongst the crowd. And then, or you have, classes that you go to. And so, you're going to see the same people every, week in class if you're going, or things like that. But I just wanted my kids to not be so shocked if they had these waves of loneliness and not really knowing why. That kind of explains lonely for me. And I realized after I was sharing this with my husband, with Chico, I was just saying, I need to remind our youngest that he might feel this sense of loneliness after all this letdown out of college. So he started kind of quizzing me about all of that and saying, are you lonely? And I said, it took me a minute to think about it. And I thought, you know what? No, I'm not lonely. I'm not lonely. I have you, I have my kids, I have friends, I have my parents, family, dogs. I mean, I am not lonely. So it's not that I go, but I kind of have this feeling that I want to be alone. Okay. And so let that sink in a little bit because I want to talk about kind of the difference between lonely and alone, because I think there's just a huge, huge difference. And so where it took me in my head, because I don't psychoanalyze other people as much. I mean, I can definitely, I kind of want to know what makes people tick, but I can sure psychoanalyze myself all day long and try to figure out, why am I feeling this way? And, all these deep questions, and why am I not lonely? But I do I'm craving being alone a little bit, but that does not mean that I want to be without my husband or without my children or without my parents or friends or anything. It's not the same. Okay. So what I'm talking about is, I think, well, first of all, I had to realize I have never lived alone, ever in my entire life. I've never lived alone. I was born into a 2-parent house, have a younger brother. So, until I was 4, it was 3 of us. Then it was 4 until I left the house for college. And then I had roommates for 4 years in college. In fact, my senior year, I lived in a sorority house with 50 other roommates and women. I was always around so many people all the time. Then I graduated from college, came home, lived at home again with those 3 other people because my brother was still in high school. And then I moved in with roommates, and then I got married, and I've never lived alone. So when you never live alone, but you feel lonely, I think that goes to the fact that I have always put things through a filter of how are my actions or my behaviors, things that I like to do, things that I like to watch, things that I like to eat, the way I like to clean, whatever. How is that going to affect the people around me? So you're always putting it through a filter, especially for me as a people pleaser, codependent, all those things. If we were to put it through Chico's filter, because he doesn't have one, he would filter it out as doing everything exactly the way he wants to do it. And so if I'm his roommate, which I am and have been for 30 years now, I don't think he puts anything through a filter of how it's going to affect me. It's kind of like I like my, clothes hanging over this chair when I take them off. And I like, my coffee here, my coffee maker. I like my cigars right here on this box, on this corner. Don't move anything. You better not move anything because, but is that can make you feel, it can make me feel lonely because I'm like, I want somebody to connect with me and how I like to do things and how I like things and be like, ooh, yeah, I want to do that too. If it's lay in bed and eat Oreos, I don't eat Oreos. Travis does. But if it's lay in bed till 10 a.m. and eat Oreos in the morning, then, well, I should be able to do that. But I can only do that if I'm alone, if that makes sense, because you don't want anybody else like seeing what you're doing. But I've never had any privacy. And that's not to say that the people that I lived with weren't willing or able to give me privacy, but you just can't fully have this privacy or aloneness when you're under a roof with other people. Okay, so where that leads me to also is the difference between lonely and alone is that I start to crave, for me, my higher power is God. Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and that is my belief system. I think most everyone has a higher power, a belief system, whether it's nature or whether you don't have a belief in God. There is something that you believe in that gives you peace and allows you to have alignment with the universe or whatever, however you want to say it. So I don't want to put everybody in my box, but my box is I have to get alone to work on my vertical relationship with God, my higher power, and where I draw my peace and my comfort and my anti-loneliness situation. How I don't feel lonely is if I am in communion and connected to God. And so I have to get time alone to do that. And I am finding the older I get, I thought it was hard to find time alone with God because I had kids or I was living in a sorority house or just so much noise, or I was living at home and my parents were telling me what to do and doing what you can always blame like the noise around you or, the circumstances around you or whatever. And then you don't get that time alone. Okay. And so I think, you always hear people saying, well, nature is really my thing, which is awesome. And nature is kind of my thing too, because my God created nature in my, belief. So I love nature, but you hear people say all the time, I needed to get alone in nature. We love being in nature with friends and family and all that kind of stuff, but don't we really love being in nature and things like that alone? Because you can really hear and you can really listen and you really come out of it with this huge sense of peace and comfort. So I have just realized as the noise level in my actual home lessens, the more I can feel restless and disconnected and lonely. And I'm not lonely in my relationships. I'm not lonely on a day-to-day basis, but I am kind of spiritually lonely, I guess. And it comes out physically with, some stress and some anxiety. And it comes out mentally with like just wishes to be alone. and just, not anxiety over that, but just like this longing to just hold on. I just need a minute. I want to read a book. I just want to be alone. I have no idea if this is resonating with anyone. I'm hoping that it is, because I've had to explain to people in my life, including my husband and my children, that I need time alone. And I think they get it now. I think before, especially Chico would get his feelings hurt. He would, say things like, "What? Oh, you need to be alone? What? Am I not good enough? Or am I not, or do you not have fun with me anymore? Or do you not?" I mean, like, no, it has nothing to do with that. I mean, it's just, doesn't everyone need some time alone, first of all, but then also just some privacy in their life when you don't even realize that you haven't had that ever? And so I am glad I gave my kids that messaging to look for the loneliness and be aware of the loneliness, but I didn't really give them a solution to that because I didn't know the solution myself. I just kept thinking, oh, just get through your 20s, just maybe find your person, maybe not, maybe find the right job, maybe not, find the city that you want to live in. You just start to tell them all this stuff, but you don't give them a solution. And so I've realized that the solution for me to just get some answers to all of these questions, or the cure for a loneliness or a disconnect or a feeling of, edginess or just not content, is maybe getting alone and really seeking out your vertical relationship with a higher power and saying, hey, for me, it's praying that God will show me what I need to do, give me signs. And I can find them in nature too, which is so awesome. It's incredible to me about the creation and of the world, is that we can look outside and, we just have to be aware and listen and hear the signs. Like, I don't know. Anyway, I know a couple recently that had a baby come pretty early. I mean, earlier than they thought it was coming, and it was on a day, and they had lost another child, an older child. And so they're having this baby early, and it was a storm brewing that day. And I was like, oh gosh, they're going to have this baby on this, hopefully they get to the hospital because this storm's brewing. And then in my mind, I was like, but wait, this is the perfect setup for a rainbow. And sure enough, a rainbow appeared over their hospital room and their hospital when the baby was born. And it's just, that's, I believe it's, God saying, I promise I've got your one here in heaven, and I've got your one that is coming to you now, and take care. But that's a sign. Like, there hadn't been a rainbow since that day, and there wouldn't have been one the day that the birth was scheduled. And so I'm not saying that God can absolutely control every little, thing in the universe for everybody, although he could, which is the amazing power. But I'm saying that if we seek out the signs or the avenues for us to feel less lonely when we are alone, we can find those signs and those signals, and we can hear them. And, this is all this talk has kind of led Chico and I to decide to do a little experiment that our next podcast is going to be on. And because I had to ask him for time alone without, strings, or without him getting his feelings hurt, or without wondering, oh, what's wrong or with her or whatever, but just allowing me to have some time alone. And then he would like for me to put my phone on the charger and away out of our bed and our bedroom for one night a week, which is kind of what I've asked for the whole one night a week to be alone and like figure out what I want to do. And I think it's kind of funny because I can say this because I'm by myself, but he thinks that that's torture to me, but really it's a challenge. And I did tell him, all right, challenge on. Are you sure you don't want 2 to 5 days a week? Like, I don't have a problem. I'm not addicted to my phone, but I think it just bugs him. He just doesn't feel connected to me if I am answering emails or scrolling or whatever I'm doing, chat GPT or whatever. So for whatever reason, it's gotten a little bee in his bonnet that he, feels like that he's not connected to me. And he's allowed that. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that I'm not saying the bee in his bonnet is a bad thing. I'm saying that he's just decided that that bugs him right now, which is funny. If you knew Chico and he were here, we would be bantering about this because whatever. He's decided that this week that bugs him, but next week it won't bug him. But anyway, challenge accepted. So we are going to see if we can do a few things for each other that's kind of driving each other crazy, but he's going to let me be alone. And I'm going to see. Well, so far, when I have decided to get alone, and again, I'm not lonely, and I'm having to explain this to friends also. So there's this whole thing about friends are like, oh, why'd you say no to this event or whatever? And how do I say this? Like, I don't want to have excuses anymore, but I just kind of want to not go if I don't want to go or not do things that I don't want to do if they aren't aligned with kind of how I'm feeling at the time or if I'm going to feel lonely in a crowd. I don't want to feel that anymore. I don't have to feel that anymore. It's like that old like 7th grade cafeteria feeling when you get your food and you need a table to sit at. Like, I don't want to feel that anymore. I don't want to feel awkward or lonely or like, oh, who am I going to know and who do I need to find to talk to? I don't want to feel that way anymore. I don't have to because I'm 56 years old and I don't have to feel that way anymore. But I don't want people questioning me and taking it personally. Like, I guess she doesn't want to hang out with us anymore, or, what's wrong with her or whatever. I don't know. So I need Chico here to be asking me some questions, but that's how I feel about lonely and alone. I think they're different. And I think we need to have an awareness about the difference and then we can have some solutions about the difference. If lonely and or alone are not good or bad, they just are, then because I think a lot of people can see lonely and alone as bad. During COVID, we saw a lot of isolation. We don't want people to be isolated. We don't want people to be lonely. People that have been married for 60 years and they lose their spouse. I mean, oh my gosh, how lonely. We don't want people to be lonely. We don't want them to be alone. We kind of consider them negative words, but if we can kind of switch it up where no, actually being alone can do a lot of healing and give you a lot of peace and clear the noise and let you hear things. And being lonely can be okay too, because it puts you in uncomfortable situations to work through that comfort. It's kind of a messy middle situation. And we're going to do some podcasts on a series of messy middle situations. And I think one of them is dealing with loneliness and how that makes people uncomfortable and how they can move through the messy middle to peace and comfort and joy and gratitude and all of those things. So anyway, this is going to be my little solo spiel that we will release as our next podcast. And then we will talk about, Chico and I will come back and talk about our little experiment and just how things are going with that on him not taking things personally, and then me not taking it personally that he thinks I have a problem with my phone, which I think he really has a problem with his phone. But anyway, we will talk about that later. And I also want to leave you with this, that I think I touched on that when you never lived alone and you're always concentrating on what other people around you that you live with are thinking. When you're alone, you can really start to think about what you want. Like, I try to think, if I lived alone, because a lot of times people don't want to go there. They're like, I don't want to live alone. I don't want to be alone. I want to have my husband and my kids and my friends and my family and my church and my community and all the things. I want all those things too. But it's just a little experiment that I can leave you with too, since we're going to be experimenting this week, of if you're alone and you're really thinking about, like, I get a little taste of it when Chico's out of town and the kids aren't here, of what I would do if I really just lived, if I was alone, if I had some alone time and no one was going to come in and whatever. I mean, you eat what you want. I mean, it can get kind of weird because you can eat what you want. You can have breakfast for dinner. You can, have coffee for dinner, whatever, you want. And then you can dance while you're folding laundry, and you can watch Gossip Girl and things like that are not for 56-year-old women, but it can be quite addicting to just leave it running on your TV and you're watching it or whatever. But what would you do if you were alone? And then how can you channel that into, giving you some peace and comfort and getting that fixed, getting your tank filled? And then if you do live alone, how can you embrace that and turn it outward? Like, if you live alone, then really get alone, like with God or your higher power. Really try to do that and have God show you how to not be lonely. If you are alone and lonely, ask for God to show you how to branch out of that loneliness, because neither of them are super bad or super negative in themselves. But if we take them both to negative town, then it's like a pity party, and no one needs a pity party in their life. That is not helping you move forward. Right? Okay, so that's the coach in me that's doing the little coaching thing about moving forward, constantly trying to figure out how to move forward. And so anyway, that is my topic for today, how I want to be alone some more. But I don't want to ditch everybody in my life. I just want to be alone because I like it. And I think some of you are going to relate to me. And that's going to make me happy, because sitting here recording alone, you don't feel too much feedback. So anyway, everyone, enjoy your summer, the beginning of June. Try to take it easy and enjoy the lazy days of summer. Okay, thanks for listening.